それでは時間となりましたので、
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to now begin Paris Session 8, entitled Financing Low-Carbon Technology Transfer for SMEs and Matchmaking Strategy. The session is moderated by Mr. Kawakutsu of IGS. Now, I'd like to hand over the microphone to Mr. Kawakutsu. Thank you very much, and good morning. My name is Kawakutsu. I am an area leader of climate change and energy at IGS. In this session, we will talk about the technology transfer for SMEs from financing point of view, especially when we consider technology transfer to developing countries and among others, SMEs that have a growth potential. When technology is to be transferred, how we should go about technology transfer. And that's the main topic, and we have invited the members from industry, those from the developing countries' government, experts, and those from international organizations. In fact, we have members that are versed in practical aspect, especially on the part of IGS. For promoting technology transfer, matchmaking is crucial. And what is required and what is crucial or important in such operation is going to be discussed. We're going to hear about the case in India and also as global development. We will talk about mechanism that is involved in climate change related technology transfer mechanism, and in the panel session we hope to discuss various topics including how we can promote or facilitate technology transfer, and eventually that is up to the members from industries, governments, and international organizations, experts, what kind of strategy is effective involving those stakeholders. This is going to be a rather long session, 2 hours. First, from IGS, we'd like to invite a speaker to explain to us the context, the background.
So the tax manager of climate and energy area, the senior researcher, Mr. Yu Ging Yu. Please.
Thank you, Kwak-san, for a very nice introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our session. Today, I would like to start my presentation by sharing the results from a very interesting study. In this study, the authors aim to answer 2 very important research questions. First is what technologies should be given priority for technology transfer? And second is which geographical areas should be given priority for technology transfer? Let's first look at their technology selection. In this study, the authors use a very different methodologies than the TNA study. TNA stands for Technology Needs Assessment. The authors applied the very simple criteria for technology selection. They look at those technologies that have high emission reduction potential, but currently have very low transfer rates. So, and then they also rule out any criteria that are country-specific, such as economic development status. So this is the left-hand figure is the final result. The horizontal line is the CO2 emission reduction potential, and vertical line is the current transfer rate. And they found that there are several technologies under this line. Those other technologies have high potential, but currently with low transfer rate, which should be given priority for technology transfer. Next, they look at the geographic regions, which geographic regions should be given priority. They applied the same criteria, but instead of looking at technology potential, they look at the region potential. And the left-hand figure shows that India and the rest of Asia should be given priority. They also explain why this region currently have low transfer rates, which can be explained by the right-hand figure, which shows that India and the rest of Asia currently have very low absorptive capacity of climate technologies. Currently, under the UNFCCC framework, there are several schemes related to technology transfer. In the center is the technology mechanism, which has two operational arms. The first is the Technology Executive Committee, TEC. The second is the newly established the Climate Technology Center and Network, CTCN. Related to the technology mechanism is the financial mechanism. The current operational financial mechanism is GEF. GEF collaborated with UNEP and other organizations to support developing countries' TNA study. And then at the right hand, there's the market mechanism. CDM has been considered as a very important mechanism for technology transfer. However, due to its decline, currently under discussion is the new market mechanism, NMM. And Japan's joint crediting mechanism, GCM, is one example of NMM. And finally, although NAMA has no explicit link with technology transfer, several developing countries have considered using NAMA as a tool for technology development, which they call technology-based NAMA. In reality, technology transfer happens almost exclusively between North to South. South-South transfer is very rare. Technology transfer can take place via three channels, which are international trade, foreign direct investment, and patent. It is clear that for technology transfer to be effective, both the originating and the recipient countries need to have rigorous GHG policies because demand for climate technologies can be created by policies. And it's also very important that the South country has the capacity to absorb the advanced climate technology. However, with regards to intellectual property rights, there's no conclusion. IPCC AR5 states that there is no evidence either to support for or argue against the protection of intellectual property rights. Similarly, there's no conclusion about the trade-related barriers on technology transfer. In general, it is hard to draw a conclusion whether technology transfer has positive or negative impact on the welfare of the supply and demand countries. But the good news is there's enough evidence to demonstrate that technology transfer increases global competition, thereby reducing the cost of climate technologies. We all know that technology transfer is a complex process. It does not take place automatically, predictably, or easily. Therefore, it requires a lot of policy interventions. In this big table, I summarize some of the policy instruments for financing climate technologies according to the development stage of the technologies. When we gaze our attention to the small and the medium enterprises, we realize that SMEs are very important for the global efforts for addressing climate change. Due to their relative small size and weak financial stabilities, SMEs in general get involved in the transfer of marketed goods. The engagement of SMEs parallel with the market characteristic of technology transfer. By bearing the market nature of SMEs, I'd like to conclude my presentation by sending the final message. If there's only one strategy for financing technology transfer for SMEs, I would select that this strategy is to incentivize the private sector. We did a preliminary analysis of the financial barriers faced by developing country and developed country in investing climate projects. We look both at debt barriers and equity barriers. We look for the factors that are unique to the developing countries and those factors that are generic to climate investment in general. And then we also look at those barriers faced by the SMEs in the developing country versus those barriers faced by the state-owned enterprises in developing countries. I don't have time to go through this table, but in general, the conclusion is that we found the equity markets in the developing countries appear to be readily available at reasonable cost. However, climate investment could be much less expensive if not for high debt cost. I'd like to stop here and thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the following discussion and presentation. Thank you.
Yu研究員ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much, Ms. Yu. First, the context was explained, and I'd like to remind you that we will take questions at the end of all the discussions, so please be ready to ask questions at the end of the session. And as for presentation materials, they will be uploaded on the website of IGES, and therefore, if you're interested in particular material, you can access the website and see those materials. And from Ms. Yu, she explained about the technology transfer of low carbon technology, which is yet to produce the significant return. Now we hear specific examples, and there are two cases to be presented. First, we will hear about technology transfer involving SMEs. And from Japanese companies' point of view, we have with us Mr. Kitayama from Maekawa to tell us about their experience. Now, Mr. Kitayama, please. Good morning. My name is Kitayama of Maekawa.
インドの方にヒートポンプを納入した事例とですね、あとその
I'd like to explain about specific case study that is the heat pump export to India, and then also talk about the various points that are considered important in technology transfer. First, about ourselves. Maekawa has 60 branches all over Japan and 91 in overseas. The refrigerators, heat pump, and engineering are the areas that we engaged in. And first, about low carbon technology that we have. The CFC is considered to be related to global warming, and therefore instead we would use natural refrigerant, and we can offer technology that can produce temperatures in the range of minus 100 degrees C to positive or plus 120 degrees C. This is an example of the low temperature technology. The system is called Newton, which uses ammonium or NH3 for cooling, and by cooling CO2, carbon dioxide, this is a system to do cooling without a significant burden to the environment. And in this case, in place of a CFC, we use R22. With that, energy consumption is reduced by 20 to 40%. Since 2 years ago, we started introducing this technology to Asia, and recently, this technology was introduced to Indonesia as a JCM project. Next, about heating case. This is the one that I'd like to talk about to some extent. This is in the case of India, and heat pumps were introduced in 2 sites. One is for a dairy plant, and the other is for chocolate plant. And in this case, we introduced a heat pump that can offer both cold water and hot water. And this is a process to conduct the boiler heating, and this can offer the hot water supply as well as cooling. And with this, the energy consumption for a freezer is reduced. In fact, not only carbon dioxide emission is reduced, but also running cost and energy consumption are reduced as well. And in this project, JICA, JST, IGIS, Maekawa joined, and from Indian side we had TERI and SME, and thus those parties concerned were engaged in collaboration in realizing this project. Well, in fact, there were some ups and downs in this process, but roughly speaking, this process is divided into 4 processes. First, we conducted feasibility study, whether the process is really practical. Even when Japan has a good or excellent technology, the excellence of benefits of their technology have to be understood, and therefore we conducted workshop, and through presentation and discussion we tried to improve communication. And centering around engineering, how we can use this technology, how this should be operated, and how this should be installed, various challenges related to installation and operation were identified, and then based upon that survey we actually introduced the technology to the site. And in the process up to introduction, we try to identify all the important requirements so that there won't be any gaps or disparities. And the follow-up, that was crucial because the system is actually used and operated by SMEs. Therefore, in case they face problems and what if they cannot fix it, then they will give up the system. In order to avoid such a situation, we try to come up with a list about the points for consideration, what they can do for the problem shooting, and we also conducted the series of workshops to improve understanding of the users. And here are some snapshots of actual introduction. As a result of this technology transfer, and through those processes steps, we introduced the state-of-the-art technology from Japan to SMEs in India. And in fact, the result was what we expected based upon this technology. And on the part of SME, the user, the operator, they conduct a daily routine inspection, and that they are now capable of carrying out routine maintenance activities as well. And through workshops and follow-ups, we try to introduce this technology and deploy it horizontally across different sectors. But there are some challenges or problems as well. Based upon this project, we realized that in terms of capital expenditures, well, the users have a desire about conducting capital expenditures or spending capital expenditures for the essential technologies, and therefore when it comes to energy conservation technologies, that's a second priority for the end users. And also it is rather difficult to gain understanding and knowledge about the latest technology, and when the latest technology is introduced from Japan to India, whether they can continue to use it, what about the maintenance after introduction, what about the cost including tariff and the running cost, and how the system is constructed, and how the whole system is handled. Those are the challenges that were identified. Now, in our case, we try to resolve those challenges. As I explained earlier, we formed a strong partnership between Japan and India, and that was very important. And I mentioned that we conducted a series of workshops in order to gain a thorough understanding about the technology, and that was very effective. Well, problems, risks, uncertainties, those were meticulously followed up and investigated, and we tried to resolve them. And we have a local staff in India, and in this case, they were also involved in collaboration, follow-up, and backup. As initial introduction, when such new technology is introduced. There's such arrangement and organization worked. Third, based upon such an experience, in order to fully establish such a practice, the technology transfer, what are the barriers? First, in the initial stage, as I said earlier, once the introduction is realized, we hope to introduce up to about 10 sets or 10 systems a year, and I think the approach that we took would work, but the engineering skill, service, and maintenance, the equipment cost, among others, those are the ones that require further investigation. And once this is in the deployment stage, which is quite important because for such a technology to be fully established and used by local users, what about the host countries' awareness, whether they perceive such a system as practical? And in fact, there has to be the environment that is conducive to active participation from foreign countries offering such technologies. And third, in expansion stage, the local production will be required for such a system to be widely used. So to wrap up, in the initial stage of introduction, CDM and JCM utilization are considered to be effective. And also we have to consider how we can accelerate depreciation and reduce costs such as tariff or import duties and subsidies for such technology, especially in the case of a low carbon technology. And take, for example, heat pump. We should go beyond the particular technology of heat pump. In fact, there has to be a kind of labeling that this is a technology that is this much effective. And once this is certified by way of labeling, and then that could be widely spread. And also we need to carry out to promote human resource development to promote expertise locally, and therefore the host country active participation and investment in those aspects are also important. I wanted to share with you our experience and talk about the case study of Maekawa. Thank you.
ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Mr. Kitagawa. He delved into the specifics based upon his own direct experiences. His contribution has been very helpful, especially the partners being available is very important. Next presentation has to do with partners, specific technology introduction, follow-up, and monitoring. All of these are supported by the Terry, and we are happy to have a speaker from Terry. He is going to give us the perspective of developing countries. Dr. Sethi, please.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Girish Sethi. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation to ISAP, and I'm particularly happy to take part in this specific session which deals with low carbon technology transfer, and that too specifically for SMEs, as the subject is very dear to my heart. And we at TERI have been working on this subject with practical cases for many, many years till now. So I'm really happy that I got an invitation to take part in this important session, which is not normally the case when one looks at the international topic related to technology transfer. A lot of focus is always on large enterprises, so it's good to have a special session focusing on the small and medium enterprises. So what I will be doing in my 10-minute slot is that I'll initially try to just build the case for the SME sector, SMEs as a whole, and then try to give a couple of case study examples from India where TERI has been working with, and then we'll try to conclude with a few points. starting with this background related to the small and medium enterprises, and we know, I think if it's important to just bring this point up front, that SMEs are really dominating the world stage when one looks at various parameters in terms of the output, the employment, the economic growth. So the importance of the small and medium enterprises is extremely important in all parts of the world, whether we are looking at the developed countries or the developing countries. Almost 95% of the various statistics literature shows that more than 95% of the total enterprises, if one looks at the numbers, is actually SMEs. And when one looks at the developed countries like Japan and the European Union, almost 95–99% of the total enterprises are small and medium enterprises. And on the other side, if we even look at the developing countries, small countries, Bangladesh, Nepal, many other parts, a lot of statistics is available. They are extremely important from the perspective of giving employment to a large number of people in all these countries. But on the other hand, if we really see that over the last few years, at least in some of the developing countries like India, this sector has really faced problems in terms of the overall global financial slowdown. When one looks at the Indian context, coming from India, we have used the word MSME. There's an additional M before the word SME. Why? Because in India, around 10 years back, they really changed the definition of the SMEs and actually added the word M before it, meaning that the micro sector also is an extremely important sector. So basically, it is the micro, small, and the medium enterprises sector, giving an additional thrust to the fact that the micro enterprises are an extremely important element when one is looking at developing the overall sector as a whole. We have close to around 100 million people working in this. These are just some estimates by the Government of India, accounting for almost 45% of the manufacturing output and contributing significantly to the overall exports. Large number of products are manufactured in this sector. And within this sector, if one looks at it, there are many energy-intensive sectors. Because the subject is low-carbon technologies, so it's extremely important to note that within the SME sector, there are many sectors where energy is a significant part of the total cost of production. Things like glass, bricks, textiles, dairy, food processing, forging. There are many sectors where energy is a significant component of the overall cost of production. So any intervention in reducing the energy use in these sectors would be very beneficial. Some studies have been done, and there are at least more than 200 clusters of industries in different parts of the country which are energy intensive from a medium to a high perspective. And generally, one can say that many of these sectors actually use obsolete technologies and they have unskilled manpower. So a lot of scope to really deploy energy efficient and renewable energy technologies. And also, very importantly, I think the best operating practices, I'll come to that in my next slides. And there are a couple of specific ministries, departments in India which are focusing on the SME sector. Now, what is the energy efficiency imperative if one looks at it? These sectors, these areas are very geographically displaced. India is a large country. And as I mentioned, in some cases, the total energy is accounting for up to at least 40% of the production cost in many of the cases. Unskilled manpower, I mentioned. And extremely important is the bullet which is linking to the issue of lack of investment in R&D, D&D, basically research, development, demonstration, and then deployment or dissemination of the technologies. So the entire chain leading to the entire technology transfer process when one is looking at the development part of it. The other areas are non-availability of power supply. These are the issues on a regular basis, high cost of energy. And extremely important also is another point, I think there are not very good channels of communication between the technology providers and SMEs, even domestically, if one looks at it. And of course, the financing is one major barrier, one major issue when one is looking at low carbon technologies. As I mentioned, I think looking at the key success factors in accelerating the adoption of low carbon technologies in SMEs in developing countries as a whole, taking the example from India, I think very importantly, one needs to see that research, development, demonstration, and dissemination of the clean technologies, LCDs, coupled with technology customization at the local level, that would be a very, very important factor when one is looking at accelerating the adoption of LCDs. And I think it's here that the role of the international technology transfer mechanism or the cooperation mechanisms plays a very, very significant role. And as was mentioned in the background presentation by the colleagues from IGS, I think the role of the private sector will be the final concluding slide I noticed in the initial first presentation of this session was that the role of the private sector. So I think it's extremely important to note that private sector plays an extremely important role because many of these technologies are in the hands of the private sector that way. The other bullets in this basically promotion of adoption of LCTs through policies, backup support, skill development, access to finance. All these things will equally be important, including having the local institutional capacities within the countries. These are very important from the recipient side of it. So one should have the enabling environment in the developing countries to absorb these high-end technologies which are going to come, or if they come from the developed world, from the north side. Just taking two examples of the work which we have been involved in over the last around 15 years or so. The first one is an Indo-Swiss technology cooperation project for promoting low-carbon technologies in small and medium enterprises. This is one of the case studies of the work on the small-scale glass manufacturing industries, where you manufacture glass in small quantities, 5 tons, 4 tons, 8 tons per day, that kind of a thing. But in many cases, the large enterprises have an order of magnitude of around 100 tons, 500 tons per day. So these are small enterprises. So here the technology actually came from the UK, in fact, from England, but it was a joint collaborative project between the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation and the Indian side. Again, this is a similar example of another technology which is for the small-scale foundries. In both these examples, one was able to demonstrate a technologies which had an energy-saving potential ranging between 20 to 40% as compared to the baselines. And in one case, almost 90% of the technology absorption has happened at the last stage of the deployment. So the demonstration was done, but then one continued for at least 10 years subsequently to see that the saturation phase happened. The second example which I wanted to mention about was the India-Japan project on low-carbon technologies, which my predecessor, Kitayama-san from Yokohama presented. So I'll not go into the details of it. But basically, it was promoting electric heat pump and gas heat pump, and also some soft technologies like the compressed air systems in the Indian SMEs. It was a joint project with JICA and GST, and the private partners here, in this case, one of the private partners was Maikawa, which helped in designing and being with us till the entire last stage of the demonstration of the projects. Now, before I come to my concluding slide, I just wanted to have this one general flow chart, which really talks about the various flows in the international technology transfer process. On the left side are, if one looks at it, are the supplier firms, and on the right side, one can consider as the recipient firms. And in between are the entire technology transfer process, if one looks at it. So flows A and B, if one looks at it, actually lead to new production capacities, increase in the production capacities, capital goods, skills, and know-how. But if one looks at the flow C, which is more on the knowledge and the expertise behind the technology, so that's extremely important. And I noticed this whole issue when the background paper was presented by the IGS researchers, that the accumulation of technological capacity in the developing countries is extremely important. So the ability of these developing countries to absorb this technology, the know-why of this technology will be an extremely important part when one looks at the long-term sustainability of the technology. So coming to my last statements, which the moderator had requested me earlier to talk about from our side, what are the most important success factors for technology transfer? I think the whole process of technology transfer, the entire R, D, D, and D, the last D is also extremely important. When one is talking about the deployment, it is not enough to really finish off by demonstrating a technology, but one has to remain with the technology for a long term, because I know the transaction costs are higher, but still, I think that's an extremely important factor. Our experience, yes, there are n number of technologies available, and the example of the EHP is a well-known example. Lots of technologies available and a lot of opportunities for absorption. And in terms of the suggestions to facilitate technology transfer in developing countries, I think, as I mentioned, important sectors need to be identified, flexibility to adapt to the local conditions. The technical assistance must accompany in a large form with the financial assistance when long-term financial assistance for SMEs is talked about. And I think given the fact that we are dealing with SMEs, you really need long-term projects. Even a 3 to 4 year scale, which we had in this JST JICA project, just ended with the third D and not with the fourth D. So thank you. Thanks once again for having your patience to listen to this presentation. Thanks.
関さん、ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much, Dr. Seth. RD and D was emphasized, especially D is crucial, according to him. In fact, not only research and development, but also demonstration and deployment are important in learning from that experience. And based upon that experience, technological capacity, as he mentioned, would be developed. And based upon that, that would eventually lead to accumulating expertise, know-how locally. Now, we take a different perspective from financing point of view. From OECD, we have with us Mr. Osamu Kawanishi, Senior Policy Analyst, who will tell us about the green infrastructure investment, including low-carbon infrastructure, a low-carbon technology-based infrastructure, and how to mobilize private investment for such infrastructure development is going to be discussed by Mr. Kawanishi.
Thank you very much indeed for the nice introduction of the Kwatsuki-san. And good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Osamu Kawanishi, Senior Policy Analyst of the Environment Directorate of the OECD. So today, I'd like to address how to mobilize private investment towards green infrastructure investment. So if we successfully make a transition towards the green infrastructure, it will provide greater business opportunities to the business firms, including SMEs. At the same time, the technology transfer is also one of the key elements to facilitate the transition towards a green infrastructure. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So my presentation is broadly composed of the two elements. First is the strengthening the domestic policy frameworks for green investment. And then secondly, how to better engage institutional investors such as pension funds and insurance companies towards green infrastructure investments. So why we focus on the green infrastructure? So as Mr. Tamaki they pointed out yesterday, the infrastructure investment decisions will play an important role to successfully tackle climate change because the choices made today about types, features, and the locations of the new and the renovated infrastructure will lock in future levels of the emissions and the resilience of our economies to the climate change. And the governments apparently have a central role to play to mobilize capital to low-carbon, climate-resilient infrastructure. And the OECD has developed 5 elements of the green investment policy frameworks to help governments create and improve domestic energy conditions. 5 elements include, first, the setting a clear long-term strategic policy goals within government. Second, implementing policies and incentives to support low-carbon, climate-resilient investment by pricing carbon, for example. And the third, the providing the right financial instruments to help leverage private investment. And the fourth, harnessing resources such as research and development to the green infrastructure and building capacity. And the fifth, lastly, and promoting greener consumer and business behavior. I just mentioned as a third element in the previous slide is providing the right financial instruments to help leverage the private investment and access to financing. And in this connection, the OECD has undertaken the study of public financial institutions. And in this study, we have identified the 3 central roles of the public financial institutions. The first, facilitating access to long-term financing by, for example, providing long-term capital, such as the equity and lending. And the second, reducing project and financial risks by, for example, providing credit enhancement tools, such as guarantees and insurance. And third, filling the capacity gap by, for example, providing needed expertise capacity building. And especially focusing on the developing and emerging economies, the OECD has also undertaken study on the policy guidance for investment in the clean energy infrastructure. This work is intended to focus on the assisting policymakers in developing and emerging economies to address investment barriers and to identify ways to mobilize private investment in renewable energy and energy efficiency in the electricity sector. In this context, the IEA recently released an interesting figure, and they estimate that every additional $1 invested today in clean energy can generate $3 in the future fuel savings by 2050. And this work raises, work raises issues for policymakers' consideration in the area of the investment policy and investment, the promotion and the facilitation, and competition and the financial market and policy governance policies. Another work stream of the OECD looks at the international trade and investment value chain of the solar PV and the wind energy. A key message of this study is that local content requirements may not be effective in promoting local value addition and employment across the solar and wind energy value chain. Now, I'd like to move on to the institutional investors. Now, OECD has been undertaking a major project on the institutional investors and the long-term investment since 2012, and a significant component of this project is concerned with how to better engage institutional investors towards green infrastructure. And this graph shows a typical situation in developed countries of financing for green infrastructure investment. And a key message of this slide is that bank asset financing is dominant in financial sector financing, and only 5% out of infrastructure financing sources is provided by non-bank entities, including institutional investors. So in the wake of the financial crisis, there are some traditional sources of green infrastructure, i.e. government, commercial banks, utilities companies, face significant constraints. And SMEs are also faced with financing constraints in deleveraging environment with restricted credit availability from banks. OECD sees institutional investors as a good potential source to ramp up green investment. And our latest statistics show that they manage $83 trillion in the OECD countries. However, in our latest annual survey of large pension funds, direct investment in infrastructure of all types accounted for only 1% of their investment. The allocation to green investment is even smaller, only 3% of that 1% share. So in our latest report, we identified the several recommendations to policymakers to address barriers and facilitate green investment by institutional investors. The top one, ensuring a stable and integrated policy environment is the first priority, as it provides investors with the clear policy messages and the predictability. Another recommendation is for governments to facilitate the development of the appropriate financial vehicles or de-risking instruments. This final slide shows that how public finance mechanisms could play a role in mobilizing institutional investors towards clean energy the project. And one of the key roles of the public financing mechanisms is to provide cover for risks which are new to investors or cannot be covered in existing market. So these include guarantees and insurance, for example. So as I already mentioned earlier, the bank lending, they have been constrained. So new forms of the financial intermediation will have to meet the credit needs of the long-term financing and the SMEs. And in this context, I'd like to make 2 points as a final remark. The first, the securitization should be revitalized as a means to generate the alternative capital market for the SMEs as well as institutional investors. And as a liquid asset, the securitized assets can be particularly attractive to institutional investors. And securitization can also act as a credit risk transfer mechanism. The second point, which I would like to make, is that the regulatory reforms in the financial market should be carefully considered to avoid unintended consequences of the discouraging long-term investment and SME financing. And the regulatory reforms should help transition towards increased non-bank intermediation. And I will stop here, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank
you, Mr. Kawanishi. OECD policy research was introduced, and increasingly importantly, climate funding. How this is ensured. From that perspective, you must examine risk, especially for long-term investment. How can we expand the investment, which is currently very much limited, and that should be dealt with later in the panel discussion. In order for demonstration to happen, funding and financing will be quite critical. Next, I want to focus on international mechanism that is already in operation. And from that, what can we learn? That is the perspective we expect from the next presentation. From CTCN, Climate Technology Center and Network, we have Associate Professor Shobaka Dakar of Asia Institute of Technology of Thailand to talk about CTCN. He has been involved with the operation of CTCN itself.
Very good morning to all of you, and thank you for inviting to this very important event. As Kazushi-san already mentioned, my name is Sobaka Dhakal. I work with Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok, near Bangkok actually. This morning I'll run you through Climate Technology Center and Networks, which is a new initiative which was started recently. In the interest of time, I think I want to go very quickly over some of slides, so please allow me for that. I think in the first presentation, I think Ariel has already mentioned to you that there is some kind of technology mechanism, and now the CTCN has been evolved as one very important program within the UNFCCC context, which has gone through a series of COP events, and this is now a new program which is composed of UNEP and UNIDO and many consortium partners, plus the evolving set of networks. Just to mention the brief mission of CTCN, it essentially geared towards the stimulating the technology cooperation and enhance the development and transfer of technology to the developing countries. So this is essentially to assist the developing countries on their specific request. So we are looking at 3 different types of services in CTCN. The first is a technical assistance, the second is information and knowledge, and the third is a network and collaboration. So this is a very innovative and new mechanism. If you look at the structure, how the CTCN functions, you see that the overall strategy guidance is provided by UNFCCC and the COP. Under that, we have a technology executive committee, advisory board, and you can see the CTCN, CTC, Climate Technology Center in the center. Then you have network on the bottom. Then you see NDE. that NDE stands for National Designated Entities. These are the national institutions which will liaise with the CTC or send requests to the Climate Technology Center and networks so that we could assist the developing country. So this Climate Technology Center itself is composed of consortium partners. You can see the UNEP and UNIDO and 11 other institutions geographically distributed, and from Asia, Girish, who was speaker before me, from TERI and the AIT. The TERI and AIT are two consortium partners from Asia, but of course there is going to be a big network. So far, 93 NDEs, these are the national designated entities who will send requests, or these are country focal points. They have been instated worldwide, and this number is growing significantly. And network activity in particular is very important, because through the network activities, the knowledge transfer, technical assistance, and whatever support need to be provided to the country request, that need to be mobilized with the help of network. So these are very active exchange of information, experience, best practices, providing expertise, training services, all these set of activities. As I mentioned, 3 set of activities: technical assistance, knowledge creation, and the capacity building. All these things are done with the networks. And also, the qualified institutions are encouraged to apply to be a part of the CTCN network, and we hope that many institutions would join as a network in order to provide support to the developing countries. Now, often we see this question that what is technology? But in the context of CTCN, the technology encompasses hardware, software, and basically organization, orgware. So essentially, this is knowledge, and essentially it's not really a funding mechanism. It's not really assisting for the purchase of technology, but essentially technical assistance here means that service of an expert or making it happen, the facilitating process, but it's not a funding mechanism. I think this is something very, very important for us to understand. And now this technical assistance itself could mean the technical assistance and the recommendations for the need assessment, specific technology advice, support for the policy and planning, support to implement the plan, or training and capacity building, and developing or providing the tools and methodologies that are necessary in the process. So these are the set of activities that encompass technical assessment. Then so far, we have CTCN has received 8 official requests from Afghanistan, Chile, Colombia, 3 requests, Honduras, Iran, and Pakistan. You can see that a couple of Asian countries have already sent requests to the CTCN, and now a lot of discussions is going on. And this initial round of requests has provided some understanding that what kind of request CTCN will receive, and also we are in really starting phase. Also, some kind of guidance document has been prepared for national designated entity just to follow through the process. So essentially, the delivery process is the national designated entities, which are NDEs, we call it them. They are the agencies which send requests from the respective countries. Then this request could be different type of requests. Some are very simple requests which can be quickly responded by the so-called request expert team, or there could be bit bigger response project which needs even the tendering inside the network on who is the right person to really deliver the service. So there are a range of activities, and again, it has to install the monitoring kind of process for its progress and achievements also. So essentially, it's a country-driven, country-requested requests, and these requests will be catered by the Climate Technology Center, and the networks provide support to NDEs. So there are different forms of this technical assistance. At the moment, we are talking about some kind of range between $50,000 to $250,000 sort of value activities. the idea is that this will lead into this particular request would lead into the triggers some kind of larger initiative in the countries. And the quick response project under $50,000 and the response project between $50,000 to $250,000. These are two different set of projects are being discussed at the moment. Also, it is very important to understand that CTCN liaises with the NDEs. Basically, it's again the country-driven process, and everything should be based on the bottom-up demand from the respective countries, and it should also fall into the prioritized needs. That means it should be in line with the national policies. And as many of you know that technology need assessment program was started by UNEP some time back. Some of these TNA reports and some of the identified needs in the TNA report provides very important starting point to really start some of the prioritizing some of the needs. And also the monitoring and evaluation process is very, very important. And as I said, that the second important component is knowledge management. So in case of knowledge management, we are compiling, CTCN is compiling information about technology and the broad set of information. We are populating this knowledge management system, which can be accessed by all the people to really get information about climate technologies. This kind of web-based systems, where people can go and search and get technology by region, by specific technology, by sector. This kind of knowledge management is being developed. And CTCN also provides supports for networking and the opportunity for networking through international regional forums, workshops, and many other things. So particularly now, how it might benefit the developed countries. This is, again, my personal perspective. It provides, in my view, some kind of platform through which the developed countries can assist developing countries. It can help to showcase the climate technologies, and it helps in networking. It also promotes north-south and south-to-north learning and exchanges, and also it assists developed countries for the opportunities to understand the technology needs of developing countries and for their own benefit in the other realm. These are some of the perspective that my personal perspective that how it might benefit even the developed countries, not only for the developing countries. Now, this is my last slides. What's happening in Asia so far? Now, many countries have national designated entities already. Now that number is growing. Also, we have received, as you saw in my last slide, that technical assistance request from many NDs in Asia already. And the CTCN is in contacts with many NDs for the possible request and providing them feedbacks and guidance based on the request. And also many physical interactions with potential NDs and networks have been organized. A few expert group meetings, capacity building workshop has been organized already. And also many consortium partners have developed so-called the sample request, which provides the initial guidance for NDs on how to prepare and how to prepare all these requests. Also, we have been populating knowledge management system through a lot of new technological information. And from Asia, again, AIT and TERI has been two consortium partners, but there's a growing set of networks and the institutions are invited. And if you see that these are some of the network institutions already in CTCN. From Asia, you can see already BioNAS from Malaysia, Global Environmental Center Foundation here in Japan, and Indonesian Agency for Assessment and Application Technology. So we really like to invite you to be a part of network and to help contribute to the CTCN objectives. Thank you.
柴川さん、ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. Well, here's with Asian Institute of Technology. And when it comes to CTCN, AIT is the consortium member, and therefore they are crucial in supporting this mechanism, and therefore including Japan. How to go about technology transfer in that respect, they play a crucial role. And if I may repeat, the initiatives of local countries, host countries, are important, and the knowledge management mechanism was referred to. That is to support the technology-related investigation. The such mechanism is there to support such attempt. So with that, the findings would be increased, and that the capacity building will be promoted. And that's another aspect that we'd like to discuss in the later part of this program. Next, we hear about joint crediting mechanism. First, from Vietnam, we have with us Mr. Lu Gok Tuan, and from Department of Meteorology, Hydrology, and Climate Change, Minister of Natural Resources and Environment of Vietnam. He serves as Secretary General of the JCM.
First of all, I would like to thank organizers for having invited me to such an important event. And today, I'm very happy to share with you some information about joint granting mechanism in Vietnam. So in my presentation, I will give some information about the current status of JCM and the JCM project pilot, and some advantages of JCM in technology transfer and financing projects for Vietnam, and some related issues. Just before going to the current status of JCM in Vietnam, I would like to say that Vietnam is vulnerable country to climate change, especially to sea level rise. And we are now making efforts to be a responsible member in the communities in the fight against climate change. And of course, to do this, we also have to focus on promoting our economic restructuring to what a low carbon economy. Now just talking about the current status of JCM in Vietnam. As you know, the agreement on cooperation on implementing JCM signed between the government of Vietnam and Japan in 2013. And so far, after the agreement was signed, we have established joint committees of Japan and Vietnam. And so far, we have convened 2 meetings, one in Vietnam and one in Japan. And after the 2 meetings, our Prime Minister have agreed on the implementation of pilot projects. And to manage the JCM projects, we are now developing a circular on management of JCM project in Vietnam. And we have the first draft, and we hope that to organize a consultation workshop with the stakeholders in August. And of course, so far we have promoted our cooperation with relevant agencies from Japan, such as ISAP and OECD. And talking about project pilot, so far the businesses of the 2 countries have cooperated in develop about 28 FS and DS projects. And as you can see on the screen, there are some sectors and fields where the projects are focused on. The first one is waste management and treatment, and the second one is land use and forestry, and the most important is industry, energy saving, and efficiency, and the last one is transport. And at the second meeting of the Joint Committee in Japan in February this year, and the 2 sides agree on selecting 4 projects for pilot implementation. So I just moved to talk about the advantage of JCM projects. Of course, the JCM projects as we hope, will provide financial and technology support for our businesses, especially the small and medium-sized enterprise. And of course, with the financial and technological support from Japan, we hope that we can promote the renovation and reform of technologies to enhance our economic effectiveness and competitiveness. And as I mentioned before, because we are now focusing on restructuring our economy, so we hope that the low carbon technologies from Japan will help us to promote our low carbon economies and green growth. One important thing we expected from JCM projects is we will create jobs and to improve the qualities of the environment and capacity building for the communities and businesses. Now I just move on the related issues to JCM in Vietnam. So far, as I mentioned before, we have promoted the cooperation with Japanese agencies such as ISAP and OECD to promote the implementation of JCM in Vietnam. And so far, we have cooperated in, just to designating the third-party entities, and we are now discussing about the methodologies for JCM projects. And also we have promoted cooperation in capacity building for the member of Joint Committees of Vietnam and our Secretariat. And in the future, we hope that we will organize the training workshop for possible participants in JCM. I mean just the candidate for TPEs or the businesses who want to join the JCM. And we also want to promote the JCM information and knowledge to ministry, localities, and business communities, because as you know, JCM is important to us, and we want to attract more participants in the mechanism, especially from the business communities. Just before ending my presentation, I'd like to say that JCM projects are very important for us because they will contribute to our responses to climate change. And also, it will help us to enhance our national economics competitiveness and promoting our participation of private sector and communities in the response to climate change. And of course, we still have opportunities and potential for JCM because JCM is just in line with the existing policy of Vietnam. As I mentioned before, we are now promoting the restructuring of our economies to low carbon economies and green growth. And also we have promoted cooperation between the governments, businesses of Vietnam and Japan. And one important thing is we have high potential for GHG reduction. But JCM still have some challenges for us. For example, JCM quite still new for us, and we still have some difficulty in, just the methodologies, and also we faced some limited capacity. So thank you very much for the attention.
レンゴック・トゥアンスさん、ありがとうございました。 特にファイナンシャル、テクニカルサポート、そういったところをJCM を通じて得られると、また具体的なそのパイロットプロジェクトも実施できるというあたりはやはりこういったメカニズムを通じて、より具体的な技術移転のステップとなりうるというところ。
More specific technical transfer can be promoted through JCM. On the other hand, human development, capacity building are also important aspect as he emphasized them. Now, we have another speaker from Bangladesh about bilateral offset crediting mechanism. We're happy to have Mr. Monsu Alam, Joint Secretary and Director of Department of Environment of Ministry of the Environment and Forest in Bangladesh. He's a member of Action Committee. We're happy to have him reporting bilateral offset crediting mechanism.
Good morning to all. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers, especially the IGS, for inviting me to this August gathering to share our experience about the bilateral offset credit mechanism in Bangladesh. I am Mansoor Alam, as you say, Director, Department of Environment under the Ministry of Environment and Forest. Bangladesh is a South Asian country, very vulnerable to climate change because of its unique geographical location, its delta landscape, and 80% are the floodplain. Population density of the country is one of the highest in the world, is 1045 person per square kilometer. It is a very disaster prone. People are exposed to natural hazards, natural-based economy. So the effects of climate change is very vulnerable. Presently, we have a consistent economic growth of GDP growth, about 6.6%. Annual export earnings around 24 billion US dollar. Foreign exchange currencies are more than 21 billion dollar. The BOCM low carbon growth partnership is purpose is that for the diffusion of leading carbon technologies, products, systems, services, and infrastructures, as well as implementation of mitigation actions contributing to sustainable development, and to appropriately evaluate contribution to greenhouse gas emission reductions or removal from the developed country in a quantitative manner through mitigation action implemented in developing countries, and use those emission reduction or removals to achieve emission targets of Japan, and to contribute to the ultimate objective of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change by facilitating global actions for emission reduction or removals. The current status of BOCM in Bangladesh is we have already have the MOU between government of Bangladesh and the government of Japan that was signed in February 2013. The joint committee was established between the two countries, and we have convened two meetings, one in 2013 in Bangladesh and another one in 2014 in Japan. The joint committee already approved relevant methodologies, procedures, plans, guidelines. The joint committee has started to designate the third-party entities for BOCM projects. We have, the last meeting we have approved, the joint committee approved two pilot projects. One is a brick production based on non-firing solidification technology. Another is high-efficiency rice husk-based cogeneration. And another, although not approved yet, but it is a pilot project, solar power generation with long-life storage battery in non-electrified regions. The advantage of BOCM technology transfer and financing project in Bangladesh is that we have enabling policy strategies and legislation around mitigations. Although Bangladesh globally, we don't have the obligation for mitigation, but Bangladesh has the climate change strategy and action plan of 2009, of which mitigation is one of the priority sector. We have already Bangladesh Renewable Energy Policy in 2008. We have interim action plan on improvement of energy efficiency and energy conservation 2013. Bangladesh has the Energy Regulatory Commission Act 2003, Bangladesh Sustainable and Renewable Energy Development Authority Act 2012. We have the Agency for Renewable Energy. We have already drafted Energy Efficiency and Conversion Act in 2013. The advantage of this BOCM is that Japan is the major development partner of Bangladesh. A lot of financing going to Bangladesh, and there is a very much Japanese technology is very much popular in Bangladesh. There is a popular support for Japanese technology, especially low carbon technology. And this, you know that this BOCM is a very much flexible and very simple compared to CDM. You know that the CDM project is very complicated, and the future of the carbon market, you know, that is a very, very diminishing. So this BOCM project may be the alternate for CDM projects in Bangladesh, and we have a very friendly investment policy in Bangladesh. A lot of Japanese companies are investing in Bangladesh. We have exclusive economic zone, and also we have Bangladesh export processing zones where the foreign direct investment can be happened, and Japanese company can invest, and also already we have several Japanese companies. And the recent visit of the Prime Minister of Bangladesh in Japan, we have signed a joint statement made by the two prime ministers that nearly 6 billion yen is going to be invested in near future in Bangladesh. So Japanese technology may be promoted by this BOCM projects is also an option. The priority sectors for mitigation in Bangladesh is the power generation, transmission and distribution, waste to energy, transport, road, railway, and water. Energy-intensive industries like private and public sectors, agriculture sector, solar water pumping for irrigation. We have some pilot projects already. Residential and commercial purpose, natural gas for cooking and buildings. Cross-sectoral options, there are boilers, hollow bricks, compressed bricks. This compressed bricks was one of the pilot projects. We have options for renewable energy like solar PV, biomass, and wind energy. The issues related to BOCM technology transfer and financing project in Bangladesh. We have inaugurated capacity of the BOCM secretary. So capacity of the BOCM secretariat and also for the joint committee members and the private entrepreneurs should be enhanced. We are discussing with the IGS for a capacity building projects. Hopefully it will be work. And the issue is that initially this BOCM mechanism is working with non-tradable mechanisms. Maybe still negotiation is going on in the UNESC forum for this BOCM mechanism or joint credit mechanism would be a mechanism under the framework of various approaches in the UNFCCC forum. Then maybe it will be a tradable approach. So we think that we have a very good future in BOCM projects for investment in Bangladesh and also for the employment opportunity of the people of Bangladesh. So thank you very much for once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musro Alam. BOCM, which is bilateral offset credit mechanism, was referred to. In the case of Bangladesh, they refer to bilateral systems by BOCM, and in the case of Vietnam, they call it JCM, but they refer to the same type of the mechanism. For your information, we'd like to now move on to panel session.
So we will have a further discussion on the panelists.
Now then, ladies and gentlemen, in this panel discussion, we hope to undertake active discussion, and we hope to take some time for taking questions from the floor. And we want to discuss specifics. Well, each panelist represents different expertise. Let me introduce panelists who are with us today. First, from JICA, from Office for Climate Change, Global Environmental Department, we have with us Director Mr. Naoki Mori. And then from NIES, we have Principal Researcher Dr. Hanaoka of NIES. Then we have Mr. Kawanishi of OECD, who gave the presentation earlier. And then from Asia Institute of Technology, Dr. Shobakawa Jakal. Here we talk about financing and technology transfer. We heard about presentations both focusing on financing and the technology transfer. Here we want to combine those two aspects. Now on this side, because matchmaking is part of a title this time, for specific undertaking of technology transfer, what kind of consideration is required is something that we'd like to discuss. Next to me is from Tokyo University, and also he is from CREAPI. Dr. Ueno is with us. He authored many books on this topic, especially climate-related technology is something that he holds interest as his specialty. And then from Maekawa, we have with us Mr. Kitayama, the group leader from Higashi Hiroshima factory. And then from Bangladesh, the member of the Joint Committee member, Monsoor Alam, is with us. Next to him is Mr. Girish Sethi of TERI. Well, he gave presentation earlier, especially when it comes to technology transfer involving SMEs. He has been studying that topic for many years. Now, with those experts, because we have experts from overseas as well, allow me to speak in English.
First, we would like to start from a panel session on technology transfer and finance. So in this respect, first please show the questions. We prepared 3 questions, and course, we do not need to constrain those. But maybe first question, what type of financing instrument modalities would attract significant new sources of private sector capital for small and medium entities? For this, we have discussed that a demonstration project is a quite important step to move forward to gain the experience and the knowledge. So from this point of view, how the finance can be made to support the demonstration project? From that point of view, maybe we might ask Mori-san also address, if possible, to a certain extent on this topic. Maybe we can start from Mori-san, so please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to deliver two messages taking these questions raised into consideration. First message is that we'd like to advise that it is better to activate the domestic, local financial market for promoting low carbon technologies by small scale in the small SMEs, because it is rather difficult for SMEs to get financing directly from abroad in reality. So the activation of the local financial market is very important. The second point is the continuous awareness raising activities to SMEs, especially for the management, is very important. That the low carbon technologies are very important and beneficial in terms of the medium long-term perspective. And also the technical information and financial information to them is also very critical to improve their technologies towards low carbon technologies. And developing financial institutions like JICA has had opportunities to support in this respect. I'd like to just share some of our experiences, some kind of support for SMEs to support for promoting of energy efficiency by SMEs in India. This project is to provide long-term and very lower interest rate loans for SMEs toward energy efficiency activities through domestic financial system. The second is to provide technical assistance in awareness raising on energy efficiency and technical information sharing among SMEs, and the preparation of the eligible energy efficiency equipment list, which will be referred by SMEs, and then training for financing appraisal skills for intermediary bank or financial institutions. This is a financial scheme that the very important counterpart here is SIDBI. This is the Small Industries Development Bank of India. This government bank was established in 1990, and they have more than 100 branches all over India. And they have been supporting SMEs through some financial schemes. And then, based on this financial scheme, the JICA is supporting providing very concessional loans to this bank to support the SMEs to introduce energy efficiency activities in their business. And JICA providing to SIDBI in the longer term loans 15 years repayment period and about 0.3% in yen currency. And then SIDBI lending money to SMEs. This is very concessional compared with the local market. And that repayment period is around between 5 and 10 years. And these monies can be revolving through these activities. And the end users, the SMEs, about more than 3,000 SMEs has been benefit through this program. And the automobile, garment, food processing, steel, pharmaceutical, and printing industries are targeted industries. And awareness raising activities are conducted almost every month for 3 years for the industry associations and certified public accountants and energy auditors as well. And end users have achieved about 35% energy saving in average through this program. And this program is now the second phase, and we're considering whether we can extend another phase in future. In this context, we're considering how to promote business matching between Indian SMEs and some Japanese companies. In that case, we have to focus on targeting not only SMEs, but also we have to focus on the energy efficiency equipment suppliers to SMEs in India and companies which purchase products from SMEs on energy efficiency equipment. And also financial institutions focusing on SMEs and energy efficiency is also a targeting area. And through the technical cooperation, we're trying to encouraging SMEs and other stakeholders to go into this low carbon, energy efficiency business through technical information seminars and study tours under JICA technical assistance. That is the idea in the future. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mori-san. And I think this linking with the local financial institutes is really, I think, one important the point that I think this slide this shows. And for this, probably this idea of linking the financial institutions such as JICA and also local financial institutions to linking with them. And then through that, maybe SMEs can be financed for this. So the next question is, what type of policies and institutions must be in place for developing country to be able to mobilize finance for low carbon technology transfer in SMEs? So for these questions, maybe I might ask the Dr. Hanaoka from NIS, maybe based on your research and based on your experience, how the policies can be also towards the supported technology transfer in SMEs, if you can make.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hanaoka, and I don't know whether I can answer this question directly or not, but after listening to some presentations in this morning, I would like to mention 3 discussion points. One is that why we need to promote the technology transfer so much, because you know that we need to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions reductions in the future. But in the Copenhagen Accord in 2009, many policymakers paid attention to the 2-degree target. I mean, 2-degree staying below 2-degree temperature limit compared to the present industrial level. So in order to achieve this target, it costs very high. In some report like IEA, it said that it costs more than around $200 per ton CO2. And based on our analysis, it costs around $400 per ton CO2. It costs very high compared to the current carbon price. So in order to achieve this target, we need to promote a large amount of the mitigations. I mean, we need to push forward the technology transfers to the developing countries. And that is the reason why this point is very important. And the second discussion point is about the market size of the technology transfer and the budget size. And as the Mr. Sati from Terry, he presented, the market size of the small and the medium enterprises account for around the 95% all over the world. And if we see the situation in Japan or EU, the SME is account for the market size is 99%. So it means that we have a very huge market But Mr. Kawanishi from the OECD, he presented, we have a fund and we have the strategy, but our budget side or funding sides are very limited. So we need to think of some kind of criteria, which project we should support and which project we cannot support. So in order to think of that criteria, maybe there are some points. First point is about mitigation potentials. If we can consider the large amount of mitigation potentials, we should support. And next point is about the financial aspect in this, like the question in this session. Maybe we can think of the criteria like internal rate of return. In Japanese, naibishueki. So if the internal rate of return rate is very high, we need to ask the private sector to do by themselves, or we need to think of some kind of policy system to support that project. But if the internal rate of return is very low, but if we have a very high impact on the society, we need to think of some kind of the financial support. For example, if we see the CDM project, please, if you are interested in, please visit the IGES webpage. If we visit the IGES webpage, there is a CDM project and the investment analysis database. And if we see that without the carbon price, the internal rate of return is very low. But if we consider the carbon price, then we can some project will be enough. Some project can get enough amount of internal rate of return, like more than 10%. So such project we need to support financially, I think. And the last discussion point is about some barriers and the policy collaborations. And from the presentation from Mr. Lee from Vietnam and Mr. Alam from Bangladesh, they explained about the direct collaboration between the developing countries and the Japan adjacent project. But like the presentation from Maikawa company, so there are some project, private project without not in the system of the direct collaboration between Japan and developing countries. So in such a private project, we need some kind of support like CTCN system, like Professor Dakal presented. So this is 3 comments from me. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Hanaoka. So maybe since we have limited time, but I'd also like to just a little bit follow up with Kawanishi-san about related to the question, institutions must be implemented. What type of institutions? In this respect, if you could elaborate, I think you mentioned about institutional investors, such as pension fund and so on, which has a very large potential in terms of providing finance. So do you see kind of possibility, opportunities in terms of how we can utilize those institutional investors to finance such technology transfer or new projects, if there is anything? And maybe since we have a limited time, so I also like to follow the Shobaka. So you presented CTCN is currently still the initial stage, but looking at more in a broader perspective. But also you mentioned about more technical support or knowledge kind of providers. So from that point of view, how do you see the CTCN can help in terms of facilitating technology transfer, as well as facilitating financing for such aspect? If you could elaborate more a bit about possibilities for the future, that could be really appreciated. So maybe if we start from Kawanishi.
Thank you very much, Kawatsuki-san. And I think that the Mori-san and Hanaoka-san, they made a very good point, and also I'd like to pick up some of their points. And I think institution, yes, as Ms. Kawatsuki-san pointed out, I focused on the potential of the institutional investors as one of the potential investors to ramp up the green infrastructure investment. And also, they mentioned that the securitization can be instrumental to provide as a means of alternative the market, alternative capital market for SMEs and the institutional long-term financing. And in this context, I'd like to make 3 points. And the first, in order to make sure that the securitization, the market function as expected, I think it is important to address the key barriers to securitization, such as the product standardization and data transparency, which provides enough relevant information for investors to quantify the risks involved, to what extent risks are involved in each project or their investment. And in this context, I also would like to mention that Mori-san mentioned that the importance of the domestic financial market, but the securitization will require a deep and liquid bond market as a necessary conditions. So developing, for example, a national government bond market with a long maturity as a benchmark market will be a key step in this regard. And I think in Asia, after the Asian financial crisis, the Asian countries have worked together to develop an Asian bond market. And I think this is a right direction. And I think Asian countries has already had a good basis for promoting securitization for SMEs and for technology transfer. And the next point I would like to make is that Hanaoka-san mentioned that there is the internal rate of return, naibu shueki in Japanese, and it is quite right that the investors will not invest just because it is green. I think risk-adjusted return is vital for the investors to make a decision which company or which project they will make an investment. So I think in this regard, the government policy and the policy instruments is quite important to what extent or how they can provide the right incentives in a targeted way for development and diffusion of the environment technologies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Would it be possible to put the last slide in the screen, which I did not show, but I'll not take much time. I think CTCN, as I described during my presentation, covers a wide spectrum, and the technology, different aspects of the technology deployment and transfer, technology development, and also financial aspect is definitely one very important part of it. But as I said before, that CTCN is not a financial mechanism. So the activity that done in the CTCN is essentially stimulate to have a larger effect, or in my opinion, could be a matchmaking between the needs and who can supply funds and last slide, very last slide, the last slide. Okay, Ichiban Saigo. No. Ichiban Saiga. Okay. So this is a pyramid of the CTCN services, as you can see, which I did not show in my presentation. It really ranges from a request for technical assistance to participation in events, technical inquiries, ask the expert kind of approach, or the question that directly come to CTCN help desk, and the CTCN would try to answer those questions and request from the NDEs, and also source for the information. So in all these realms, I think the CTCN can really cater services on different domains. So I think, as Kazuya-san said, that we are we are at the early stage, and now the many requests are coming, and also people have idea about what kind of request to make and what kind of service to ask. So again, this is all country-driven process from bottom up, but essentially this is not a financial mechanism, but this activity should trigger sustainable, bigger effort. So I think the financially definitely matchmaking and all these kind of things are definitely, I see possibility in the CTCN context. So I think given the interest of time, I think I'll not speak too much.
Thank you very much. Since we are also running out of time, and I also like to take some questions in the last of this panel, so maybe we just quickly move to the second round of panels, which is how we can create some kind of matchmaking strategy. And for this, maybe we can start from asking Ueno-san for his idea for the how we can start for the technology transfer.
So thank you very much for introduction by Kowakuchi-san. I want to raise 3 points, but for the sake of time, I will speak in Japanese, so please prepare for simultaneous translation.
So I'd like to talk about 3 points. First of all, matchmaking. Technology providers and technology receivers, the matchmaking between the two parties, that is. The cases where matchmaking is required is, first of all, technology demonstration. That is the stage of technology demonstration. If it's commercially available products, matchmaking usually takes place automatically as part of the business. So I'm talking about the technology that is not commercially available. The matchmaking between technology provider and technology receiver is required. In that case, since that's not a commercial product yet, matchmaking is not automatic. So receiver and provider need to be communicated with the intermediator. Somebody has to stand in between. From that perspective, as Mr. Kitagawa from Maekawa talked about, Terry and IGES can be the middleman, intermediators, to help matchmaking between the two parties. Such organizations are critical. That is the first point. Second point is after demonstration. So the last D, dissemination. Technology being disseminated to expand the impact of emission reduction and stronger resilience. If you stop at demonstration, there is no meaning. But in order to go on to dissemination, this is very difficult. In Japan, since 1990s, we try to demonstrate energy efficiency technology in developing countries. After these demonstration projects were completed, there are some technologies that are disseminated and deployed, others that are not. If you look at the technologies that are actually adopted and disseminated in the recipient country, there was enabling environment in the recipient country. For example, the regulation, the incentives to make it easy to adopt the technologies that are demonstrated. Another interesting point here is that when we were engaged in demonstration project, it could be either physical equipment and facilities that are actually imported from developed country to developing countries, and then training will be provided as part of capacity building. But that's not enough. You have to look at a local production of the necessary equipment. It could be through joint ventures, or it could be licensing to local parties, or technology adjustment based on the local conditions. That is a common characteristic of the successful cases. In the case of demonstration, export, capacity building are the major parts. But if you want to go to dissemination, you have to have the enabling environment in the recipient country. Licensing, joint venture, local R&D need to take place as part of technology transfer. So that's enabling environment that will be required for dissemination. A third point, we were talking about SMEs today in this session. So there's just one point I want to point out about SMEs. The number of SMEs and its contribution to GDP, SMEs are major players, but we have so many numbers, a multitude of SMEs, and there is no perfect common approach for all of these multitudes of SMEs. But if you are to deal with each one of these SMEs, we have only limited time and resources. There is so much we can do about them, for them. So you have to find the common problems among SMEs. In terms of technology, generally available technologies like heat generation and use, as you see in Maekawa. So these are some of the generally available technology, motor efficiency improvement for heat generation, for example. That will be the area that we have to focus on in order to achieve or maximize impact with limited resources. Those are the 3 points I wanted to point out.
Concise comments, and I think it also covers quite important points. And for the rest, actually I have prepared very simple questions. What is needed for effective matchmaking strategy from developed country point of view, and as well as from developing country point of view? So for this, maybe rest of the time, first I'd like to ask Kitayama-san about the what kind of matchmaking strategy, maybe from the developing countries point of view. I think already you share some of the experience, but if you think about if we create another this kind of mechanism in other countries other than India, what kind of things maybe is necessary? If you could just elaborate those. And also Mr. Alam and Girish, if you could also elaborate from developing country point of view, what is really helpful and what is needed. Maybe you can just briefly mention, and we appreciate. So, please.
Yes, thank you. In my case, I introduced the case of India. And as Mr. Ueno just mentioned, in the initial phase, well, the technology that we are trying to introduce is something that is completely unknown, unfamiliar to local people. Therefore, that fact itself is a major barrier for introduction. Therefore, together with Terry and other organizations, their people, staff were involved in introduction of this new technology. But again, there was some reaction saying that this is a Japanese technology, so we can't understand, we don't know. And there seems to be kind of resistance among the people locally. And therefore, to gain right understanding was essential in overcoming such a barrier. And I believe this is true not only for India, but also for other countries in introducing low-carbon technology. This is a challenge inevitable. And in the initial phase, if you try to do it alone by the private sector, I think this is quite difficult in terms of exorbitant cost that would be involved, and therefore, whether it is the CDM or JCM or the IGIS, the backed project, if there are such elements, then that could facilitate introduction, and also the horizontal deployment as well as how to diffuse it and improve the depth of introduction of technology are important. And based upon experience, what I can tell you is that in the past, in the project like this, we introduced the project and that was the end. Introduced the technology and that was the end. But we needed follow-up this time, including technology seminar. Because this is a new technology, we need to expand the knowledge about the technology widely. And so such follow-up is effective in fully establishing such a technology locally. Sorry that my answer is somewhat the abstract, but this is based upon my experience.
Thank you very much. For the developing countries side is that the low carbon technology is very new to them. So introduction of this is that is this really a right technology for them, or it is reliable, and also is it affordable for them? So this is the three major questions for the developing country entrepreneurs normally have. And also for this we need technology needs assessment for them also, and the capacity building for these NDE so that they can help these entrepreneurs in their respective countries. On the other side, the developed countries, they have the technologies and they like to disseminate it. And also the cost of production of this technology is very high in the developed countries, as already mentioned. So if, and also in developing countries there is a comparatively low production cost. So if these technologies can be produced locally in the developing countries, so it will be easier for getting these low emission technologies in affordable price. So my suggestion is this should be considered in mass making for the low carbon technologies in between the developed and developing countries. So this is my little comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
I'll like to just restrict my comments to maybe just 2 points, I think, because I had the opportunity to speak earlier. Just to re-emphasize this point, I think what is extremely important when one is looking at matchmaking strategy for developing countries is, first of all, to really, for SMEs specifically, it's a huge, large sector. We can't cater to everything. So it is extremely important from the developing country perspective also to really prioritize and define which technologies which we are looking at. And from that perspective, I feel I learned the terminology called technology availability assessments from the developed country perspective. So one should also know what is exactly is of interest from the developed countries to really partner with the developing countries. And then there's an absolute, I would say, mandatory requirement for customization to suit the local requirements. So I think that's the first point. And the second one, I think, which just to echo what Ueno-san mentioned, I think there's a need for these kind of intermediary kind of organizations when we are dealing with the sector like the SMEs. So just emphasizing these points on the need for identification of the right technologies and the sectors and some intermediate requirement. And lastly, if I may also add, I think the extreme importance of the last D in the RD, D and D, which everybody has talked about, I think. In my presentation, I had talked about 2 examples, one with the Swiss and with the Japanese. With the Swiss example, we continued with the last D, and it took quite a long time to really reach the saturation level for those technologies, almost 8 years, I would say. And in the Japanese example, which we have worked, I think we have finished with the middle D, and there is absolutely a need to make a push once we identified the right technology, to be with the private sector, to be on both the sides to push the technologies. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Girish-san. Since we almost finished this time, but since we have participants today, maybe 1 or 2 questions. If you have any questions for the panelists, please, I'd like to take 1 or 2, if possible.
I'm Tamura from IGES. Thank you very much for informative presentations and panel discussion. As I listen to this session, one thing that is critical is dissemination. Enabling environment and conditioning for dissemination has been pointed out as an important factor. Mr. Ueno, you said that some projects from Japan were successful, others were not, and the differences enabling environment, whether that is there or not. Being able to offer such enabling environment in a recipient country, is it because of the help extended by international assistance organization? Has there been in the recipient company from the beginning, or has it been provided through international corporation? And also from other participants, speakers from developing countries. Technology transfer and dissemination. To promote this, if you have a good example of enabling environment, or maybe example of international cooperation to achieve dissemination of the technology that is introduced. If you have some good examples. Mr. Ueno, would you like to start? Thank you very much for your question. Enabling environment, has it been initiated by developed countries or by developing countries? I believe it has been developed by the developing countries. Say if it's a sector of energy efficiency, energy saving, there may be similar technology available in Japan, US, Europe, but policies may be different. The recipient country will study what other good project that succeeded in other countries. So they do their survey and they try to modify the technologies. And to do this, a lot of capacity building need to take place. So I guess it's not just one-sided. Both of the parties have roles to play there.
So since we almost finished, but I first let me thank all the panelists for your very valuable input. And let me just also emphasize that I think intermediary bodies is a very important role. And for IGES, we try to be such intermediary and also try to provide some matchmaking strategies, maybe working with different organization, different government, and so that we can facilitate technology transfer. And those many panelists today also, I think, kind of intermediary also. And we, of course, we need to work together. But in order to really create actual project on the ground, on the demonstration, and also putting some finance through local finance institutions, through international institutions. I think we are now kind of getting such kind of a so-called enabling environment. But to make really enable, I think that's still we need more work. So we are currently developing such a strategy, and we hope that we can work together to also further make our things forward. So with that comments, let me ask, thank you for panelists, and then let us close the session. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Koakutsu, and all the panelists. I'd like to now take a lunch break. From 14:35, there would be 3 parallel sessions, including the one taking place in the same room. So please be back to the room that you chose at the time of registration by 14:35. You can join the other session that you originally requested for, and also lunch session about the integrated knowledge base system for scientific low-carbon development policy making in Asia will take place in the room 502 as a lunch session starting at 1300. And there will be another session. The lunch boxes are available for lunch session. Even when you did not request for participation beforehand, you can join the lunch session, or you can buy a lunch box even when you would not join the lunch session. So please come to 502 if you're interested in purchasing a lunch box, which costs you 500 yen a piece. I'd like to remind you to leave the translation receiver here in this room without taking it with you. Thank you for your